So let's walk through what that looks like for a fitness coach. What does it mean for a fitness coach to be looking after their basic needs, their relationships, esteem, and then ultimately fulfillment? So at the very
Yeah,
base,
yeah, yeah.
and I mean, it's obvious, right? They've got to have food and water to drink. They've got to
hmm
be making a good income. But what does it mean to have financial security as a fitness coach or a
Yeah,
gym owner?
yeah. That depends on the person. Financial security to me is different than financial security to you, right? Like we have different views on money and all of that stuff. I think every, two people have different views on money and security, but real life scenario and where we see it play out is perfect example. Emma and I just filmed The Professional last week, and we were talking about full-time versus part-time coaches. And we talked about our definition of a professional coach. And a full-time coach is a part of that definition. Like you have to be, in our opinion, you have to be a full-time coach to be deemed a professional, right? In this profession. What does that mean? Right? That doesn't mean you listen to that video and you're like, fuck all my basic needs. Carl just said I have to do this thing full time. I'm gonna quit my job and go all in. It's like whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a second. Remember what we just talked about. Can you feed yourself? Do you have financial security? Is there a pathway forward with you here? Right. So coaches going all in too early, I think is something that happens a lot because the barrier for the last 12 years has been so low to get into this profession full time and to get into this profession full time as an owner, right? Remember like the box spin ups where it was like take the seminar, open the gym, if you build it, they will come, the cream will rise to the top, blah blah blah. It's like we saw a lot of shit, right, come out of that. A lot of people quit their jobs and said, fucking love fitness. I'm going to do this thing full time. I'm going to go all in. And a number of those people's basic needs financially weren't met. So where were they? Remember, I just walked through like how I felt on a daily basis. I felt really good owning a gym. I wouldn't have if I didn't have money. So we see a lot of coaches that were in the same exact scenario that I was in, but they just weren't making money. And that's a lot less enjoyable of an experience if you're doing anything and it's not paying off and you're getting to allocations at the end of the month and you look at that profit number and there's parentheses around it, meaning that you just fucking lost money. That's a tough pill to swallow. So I can only imagine how coaches feel or owners feel on a month by month basis when they're paying to coach people. They're losing money. That's what it is. You're paying to own a business. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, working out 3 hours a day and doing a little coaching education and like kissing babies and having meetings, that stuff's not fun if you're thinking about the fact that you're losing dollars while you're doing
Yes,
that.
yeah, absolutely. And that's not to say that it's a bad thing to lose money for an amount of time if you see the forest through the trees and you understand that eventually you're going to be in the black, right? But you can't live your entire life in the red or losing money. So yes, there is some sweat equity that needs to be paid forward before a lot of people can see the fruits of their labor. But don't use that as an excuse. Don't get 24 months, 36 months down the road and you're like, my savings is gone and I'm still losing money. That shit has to tell you something.
Yeah. So this is the gym owner. What about the coach who is they're trying to go full time, right? They want to have a full roster of clients. They want to be able to pay all their bills just by coaching, but they can't do it right now. Like they just can't. What options do they have?
Do it part time with
Yeah.
the intentions of eventually doing it full time,
Yeah.
right? I work not me, obviously, but I work at Verizon Wireless, right? I'm selling cell phones, right? And it's like I want to coach as well. It's like, okay, when am I gonna do it? It's like, when is the time gonna be perfectly right? Never. A. B. You have to have a plan to get from Verizon Wireless selling cell phones to coaching full time. That plan might be a year. That plan might be 2 years. I don't know. But it's like I'm here, I'm selling cell phones, and I'm coaching 5 people, right? Now that's 8 people. Now that's 11 people. Now I'm starting to think like, ooh, okay. Now I'm starting to weigh, my Verizon commission versus my coaching commission. And now I'm starting to formulate this plan. It's like I need to understand in my head, okay, what is my goal? Where do I want to go? What's that client number that I'm going to get to before I say, okay, I'm going in and I'm doing this thing full time? That's what coaches need to think about. And that shit is so simple because at the end of the day, both of those things, the Verizon paycheck and the coaching paycheck, I can look at those things at the end of the month and compare them, right? I need to have an idea in my head when this goes to this number, I'm going to quit and shut this thing down. And maybe, I can sell cell phones half-time while I coach almost full-time on this side, right? So it doesn't need to be like flip it off, flip it on. It could be a transition that looks like coaching's here, Verizon's here. I don't know why I keep using Verizon. Can we do that? Is that cool?
I think so.
Verizon coaching, and it's like boop, 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 and then this thing goes away, right? I don't know how long that takes for that coach, but you just got to sit down and formulate a plan.
Yeah, but that's the key, right? And a lot of people don't have great visibility or just, even think about their personal finances and what they have going out on a monthly basis and what they need coming in to meet their basic needs. Mm-hmm. So it starts with identifying that.
Yeah.
You gotta sit down. You gotta create a personal budget for yourself. You gotta understand, if I have X number of clients, I'm going to be making Y. If I'm paying taxes, this is how it's going to affect me. And, this is what it's going to look like for me to not be in the red anymore.
Yep. Yeah.
But not many people do that.
No, I think a lot of people are afraid of money.
Yeah.
I think people are afraid of money, and people are afraid of seeing the truth, because the truth can be an ugly thing for some people. But sometimes when we look at the truth, it's a lot better than what we thought in our head. You know what I mean? I think people are just really afraid of understanding exactly what's happening with their financials, right? Whether that's personal financials, professional financials. They're just like, I need to get in a better spot before I look at it. You know what I mean? So it's like, let me get 10 more clients paying this amount of money, and then I'll get into understanding my financials. It's like, getting 10 more clients paying X amount of dollars may not be important. If you understand where you're at financially, you might be in a good place financially, right? Maybe your thoughts and ideas should go somewhere else. So I think that's always the first step, no matter what someone's doing, is understanding where their money is.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about money and creating security through that. What about relationships and belonging? What does a coach need to do there to feel secure and have that need met so that they can then transcend beyond that?
Yeah. That would have to be a very individual conversation, I think, right? Because just like we laid out, financials for you and I would be different. Actually, we might be the same. Our belonging characteristics might be the same. Like, I don't need to have 15 really good relationships. I need to have one or two. Yeah. And I'm really good with that. You know what I mean? We talked about what's the amount of time you could just sit in quarantine all by yourself and be okay with it. Right? I think our answer is probably a lot longer than most people's answers. So that sense of belonging that's definitely personalized, right? And that showed, right, over the pandemic, where, you read it every day, right? It's like mental health issues from not having that connection and losing those relationships and all of that stuff. So I think that's very personal.
It is, for sure. I can think of an example, though, of, grinding it out in the early days of coaching. And that looks like, again, being at the gym from 5 a.m. in the morning and coming home at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night. And I was newly married when I was, transitioning into full-time coaching. And I was really, really busy. And I didn't have a whole lot of time for my husband.
Yep.
And Jacob is different to me. He is definitely someone that really values having a lot of close relationships, or a lot of acquaintances as well. He feeds off other people's energy, and he needed that from his wife as well. But his wife was out of the house, Monday through Saturday for crazy number of hours, and that was tough on him. And for me, looking after my relationships means looking after that relationship primarily. And I had to figure out, how can I not be out of the house for this extended period of time so I can be there for my significant other, to create security in that relationship.
Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, 'cause you see a lot of relationships lost and business ownership as well because of that. There's a lot of business owners or people that get into this, new profession, or these high achieving individuals that are like the 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. people, and they don't give a shit about anything else, right? Like they just see like that carrot of like a lot of hard work equals success, and they never look at those relationships. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think about detached caring as well, because we're in the business of relationships. And as a young coach, it's very easy to go into every one of those relationships and put your whole heart and whole energy into that and be so invested in it and let it crush you. And when it doesn't work out like you wanted it to.
Yeah.
So learning how to create that separation is another really, I think, important step in the fitness coach's development to look after that relationship area.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. I always had an issue with that. I like over cared for a lot, like for way too many people. That might have been why I was very successful though. Don't know. I don't know the answer to that because I don't have like an N equals 2 where I was like super into detached caring versus not, but I was always bad at that. I was bad at detaching, the service and the relationship and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think that is good advice, right? And I think we have to identify what the heck detached caring is. Detached caring isn't not giving a shit about people. Detached caring is giving a shit about people, but not letting it affect you when you leave that room or leave that gym and go home and you're in bed with your husband or wife and you can't even speak to them because you're thinking about the conversation that you had with your client. That happens sometimes, right? But we have to like fight. We have to fight so that doesn't become us, where we're like, and every turn we're like with our kids and we're thinking about this conversation we just had with our client, a week ago that's still, festering and bothering us. To me, that's a really good thing to strive toward. I don't think I think I think some coaches look at detached caring as like, well, I'm here to do one thing. You might have problems. Fuck it. I know best because I don't care. Like, I think some coaches misinterpret the idea of detached caring.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, just learning not to ride the roller coaster with people 24/7 and being able to step off when you need to for your own well-being is important.
Yep. Yeah, I think the next piece would be the esteem.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's so important for us and so important for new coaches, is feeling good about yourself and what you're doing. It starts with truly believing in what you do and truly believing in what you do, and those things that they can actually help the other person on the other end. Like what you're providing is a lot of value. So I think it starts there, and then a continuation of that is trusting in your skills. To the starting point in trusting in your skills is to be well enough educated. And I wanted to be like really careful in how I position that, because education can come in so many different ways for so many different people. Education can come through just doing for some people. Education can come through 8 years of undergrad plus master's program. Education can coming through CCP, right? Education can come through a lot of different ways, but learning and then feeling really good about the stuff that you learned and not always thinking about what the next person knows. There's always someone out there that is smarter than us. Always. I don't care how good you are at anything. Well, obviously, like look at like an Einstein or something like that. Like, yeah, you're good. You're at the top. But if you're listening to this, there's someone that's smarter than you, for sure, right? Like, we're not the best at anything we do. That's reality. We're not the best at anything we do. So you got to be okay with that. Got to be okay with it.
Yeah, you got to look at the environment that you're in and the people that you're working with and ask yourself, do I have the education I need to give these people a service I believe in and do right by them and give them something that's going to benefit them in this moment? And I think a lot of the time the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But coaches doubt themselves because they're not thinking about the people that they're around. They're thinking about that unicorn client that they might one day want to work with, or high-level athletes. But when they realistically evaluate their client pool and the people that they stand to make a real impact with, it's the basics that are going to get them there.
Yeah.
education is great as a means to validate the basics over time. So you start to investigate, but I think even the smartest person returns back to those principles and those basics and those fundamentals, despite, what they learn.
Yeah, I mean, unless that client that you're talking about is like this, uber elite Olympic athlete at the top, a very top of their game. Most of the coaches that we're talking to, they're speaking to a client that just read that Today story that we just walked through and learned something from it. Right? Like we look at that sometimes and we're like, yeah, that's so obvious. That's just stupid. Why would I spend time even talking or reading that thing? But it's like, it's not obvious to most people. You know what I mean? Like there's people that read that and they're just like, oh my, like they may have been inspired to, walk an additional 30 minutes a week because they're walking 0 right now, right? It's like that kind of stuff is going to make a really big impact across a much larger population set than understanding exactly how to, prescribe, daily undulating periodization in reality. So it is the basics, because most normal human beings just need the basics, and they need to be very, very consistent in implementing the basics in their day to day.
Yeah, and those people, even if they're aware of the basics and like the fact that moving more throughout the day is good, they don't actually know how to do it.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about a fitness coach, is being able to come in and work with that individual and give them tactics that they can do based on their resources, based on what they enjoy, based on, how their day runs.
Yeah, you're meeting them exactly where they are.
That's
it's like the
what
shit that we always say, right? Yeah, no, that's it though.
The other piece there, I think you've got to really believe in what you're doing. And we're a little bit biased in what we believe is the best way to deliver people their ideal version of fitness. And inside of that ideal version of fitness looks different for everyone. And that's the basic tenet. But we do think that, an individually designed program is the best thing that a coach can kind of stand behind when compared to something like that fitness app that we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you got to believe in what it is you're selling. Otherwise, how can you be confident in it?
Yep. And the reason why we say that, though, isn't because what we say and how we implement is smarter than anyone else in terms of like the pieces inside of each prescription. It's just because we're meeting the person where they are. That's it. So you look at, if we threw an individually designed training program on the screen right now for Emma, like if we put today's training session up right now. Do you train today, Emma? Yeah. So if we put Emma's training session up today, you wouldn't look at that and be like, that's the best fucking program I've ever seen, right? Because you have no context, but that might be the best program right now for Emma. That's the beauty of it, right? Like you can look at it A, B, and a coach might look at that and be like, that's lower order, that's dumb, right? But it's like without context, how do we know? Highest order training program could be 45-minute walk outside at noon. You know what I mean? If that's that person's ideal version of fitness for that day, gosh, that's great. It doesn't need to be nuanced.
Yeah, exactly. And just to like reiterate what you said right there, coaches often look at that and they think it's too simple and they lose confidence because they think what they see on the paper is too simple to be the smartest, best program ever. But if they step back and they look at it in context of being the program for Emma or whoever their client is that they're writing it for, they're going to realize that they're doing just fine.
Yeah. We're, I know we like to think that we are, but humans aren't that complex in the way that we think about things. And we're definitely not that complex in the way that we want to perform or implement things. Our brains tell us that we should be more complex on the coach's side. Why? To increase engagement, right? That's it. But if you have like a overly engaging training and nutrition and lifestyle program, or versus almost a set it and forget it for the client, where it's like, yeah, that's easy, I can do that. Where are you going to see success in 5 years, right? Like if client A has 15 things they need to do on a daily basis versus 2, that person that's doing 2 is going to do those 2 things for a lot longer than that client that has 15 things to do. So as a coach, you have to understand that. And I think what we need to try to get to as coaches is to try to give people a lot less that have a lot more impact. Give them essential things instead of just things.
Yeah. And you've said this before on this podcast, Carl, but like as a coach, you have to have a vision for what your goal is, overarching for all of your clients. All of your clients are going to have different specific fitness goals, but you have to personally know what you're working all of those people towards. And it could be something like consistency in fitness 5 years from now, creating autonomy so that they just know what they need to do. It'll be a little bit different for everyone, but I think that's where we typically go.
Absolutely.